These days, we have a two-part problem with faith. Number one, seekers who are exploring God and exploring Jesus don't really know what it means to be a Christian or even what they're considering. And the second part of the problem is that we, followers of Jesus, we Christians, we don't know how to summarize our faith in a concise and compelling way to communicate to our friends what it means to follow Jesus so they have something to consider. What I'm recommending today is that we become as many of us, followers of Jesus as possible, become good and fluent at a fairly simple summary of the faith so that we can, with as many of our friends as possible, tell them what it means to be a follower of Jesus and what they could consider in terms of that decision. We're going to borrow from James Chong, a friend of mine, in his book called True Story, and modify his material in our presentation today. Often in conversation with a non-Christian, we get to talking about God or talking about church, and then I have the opportunity to move the conversation to a deeper level, and I ask them, can I share with you what it means to be a Christian? And then when they say yes, I get out a napkin or a piece of paper and say, let me share with you a quick diagram and what it looks like. And so here is a 4-part diagram conversation that I have when I'm talking to folks about what it means. So first I say, we live in a messed up world with a lot of jagged edges, and we have jagged relationships between us and each other. We have a warped relationship between us and God's creation, and we have a warped relationship between us and God. We have war, famine, abuse, oppression, pollution, all manner of things. And then I ask the person that I'm talking to, what bothers you about our world? What's some cause or some concern that you have that bugs you? And then I say one of the ones that rips my heart out is child abuse. Adults putting their needs over and against children and then violating them. It's not right. That's not the way that life's supposed to work. The interesting thing is that that's not the way God intended it. God actually intended it to be an incredible creation between us and each other, intimacy between us and God, between us and the creation is this picture of right relationship and intimacy and beauty and love and trust. So what went wrong between the way that God intended it and today? Well, what went wrong is I went wrong. And I said to God, shove out. And I shoved God out of the center of the story. And I said, I can do better. I can take care of myself better, and I can take care of life better. I'm a better problem solver. And so we shoved God out of the picture, and our selfishness became the center of the story. And with our selfishness at the center of the story, we have life like it is today, sad as that is. Now, what happens next? Does God throw up his hands and go, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do? People have just overwhelmed me with their selfishness. Fortunately, God said, I'm going to get involved. So God gets involved through the person of Jesus. And he says, Doug, you made a mess of things. I'm going to come and I'm going to deal with the mess that you made. And so he takes my selfishness and he remedies it. If I shove the king out of the center, I'm creating treason against the king. And as you know, those who are guilty of treason deserve the firing squad. And so Jesus says, Doug, through the cross, I'm not going to make you face the firing squad. I'm going to take the firing squad for you. And so when I lower my defenses and I say, Jesus, I trust you for my life and my future, I don't want to be all about my selfishness. I want your love and your power to take the center place where you belong. And I want you to transform me from the inside out. Then as I lower my guard and I put my trust in Jesus and I let him take the consequences, there's a transformation that happens from the inside out. And in the place of my selfishness, I have God's life and God's love and God's power living inside of me, and then offering others that same hope and love through me. And the good news is that I get to participate in God's love and purposes to the globe. And so here we are in our beautiful little stick figures, and we get sent out in hope and love and Jesus' power to the places of need around the globe. So instead of just standing idly by, God comes in the person of Jesus. He gives me the opportunity to be transformed from the inside out, and then he gives me that gift to give to other people. And then I get to go to both the oppressor and the oppressed. I get to go to the child who is suffering from abuse, and I get to say to that child, God has better for you. That wasn't God's intention, and God can bring healing to your life, even as much scarred as that was. And then, as difficult as it is, I get to go to the oppressor. And in the same sacrificial love that Jesus showed for me, I get to live that same love to the oppressor, and I get to say to that same person, God has a plan to redeem your life also. And your selfishness is not the final word, but Jesus and his love is the final word. So get out of your story and get into Jesus' story and let him transform you. And then in your own life getting turned around, you can be a person of hope instead of oppression. So what would it take for you to allow God to participate in your life and then allow you to be sent out in the power and love of Jesus? That's an important question. What would it take for you? So then I ask that person about where they're coming from in that story. I let them tell me about what it would take. I'd like you to now share this with your neighbor, grab a friend. It's not enough to see it up here. You actually need to practice this a few times. And as you get comfortable drawing the 4 circles and interjecting your story and what you care about with the world and where the other person is coming from, then this becomes a normal way that you can have this same conversation. So just to recap, I start with what's wrong with the world, which is the second circle right here, and involve them in that part. And then I get to what God, his intent is originally back here. And then circle number 3, God doesn't give up. God comes in the person of Jesus to transform and bites the bullet on my behalf and our behalf, and then sends us to the globe, circle number 4. So why don't you turn to your neighbors, do 2, 1, 3, 4, and see how it goes. Thank you.